engine that can go from Earth to orbit in a single stage. But now, this too appears to be under threat. The government said it's unwilling to increase funding for European space research. And last week, Hotol's designer stated that he would willingly break the Official Secrets Act to have his brainchild developed by a more sympathetic foreign government. But all the main European nations have their own design projects. France, for instance, supports its own design for a European mini-shuttle called Hermes. Because it uses existing technology, they claim it's the obvious first step. But the projected cost of Hermes has risen sharply, and anyway, its launcher, the Ariane 5, doesn't yet exist, even in prototype form. Germany, on the other hand, has a two-stage design called the Sanger, in which the actual spacecraft rides piggyback on top of the launch vehicle and separates from it at 6 times the speed of sound. Now, one interesting suggestion this week is that British Aerospace and MBB, the German designers of Sanger, might consider collaborating and agree to support either Hotol or Sanger, whichever one looks like it's going to be the best bet. Now, this is a big gamble, but Hotol's supporters seem more confident than ever that their technology will work.
It was into this cauldron of political and economic argument that British Aerospace last week dropped its announcement of plans for a totally new manned space vehicle. It's called the multi-role capsule, and you could be forgiven for thinking that it looks more like a backward step to the days of Apollo. But that old-fashioned simplicity may turn out to be its most important asset. Like those earlier American capsules, it's designed to sit on the top of a conventional rocket, such as Europe's Ariane 4. But with some modification, it could just as easily be launched by an American shuttle or the future Ariane 5. And it could be used for everything from taking astronauts up into orbit or carrying unmanned scientific experiments through to being a space rescue lifeboat. The technology itself is pretty unremarkable. Down this end, we have a docking port here, which will allow it to link up with any other spacecraft. There are 2 sets of thrusters, an access hatchway here, a couple of windows, and at this end, there would be a service module which provides the power and the communications. Now, for re-entry, that gets thrown away to expose the heat shield here, and with the help of parachutes, it flies to a splashdown in the sea. Inside, it can hold up to 6 people for 5 days. Now, it's not exactly roomy, but compared to those earlier ones, it's luxury. And even the great horror, the Space Loo, is described as relatively civilised.
Civilised toilets are all very well, but what role, if any, is the multi-role capsule really likely to play? Well, Europe would like to be able to send its own astronauts into space, and at the moment it can't do that. There's a meeting of the European Space Agency in 3 weeks' time, so there's likely to be some very hard bargaining going on. Meanwhile, the space capsule's designers reckon their technology is so simple that they could get the first European manned flight into space in just 6 years' time. So perhaps the first role of this multi-role capsule is to challenge all the countries involved to see whether getting people and experiments into space is the aim, or whether it's really national prestige that matters most.